For the second time in less than a year, many tourism boards prepare to reopen. Los Cabos, Mexico, like so many other places, completely shut down for anything other than essential travel in April 2020. By June 15th, they were executing the beginning of a staged reopening plan that would see them return to 50% capacity in hotels and transportation by September. Fast forward to February 2021, and once again, Los Cabos, like so many other places, is about to relaunch a staged reopening of tourism, and if anything, safety requirements, national border restrictions, and medical testing for the virus are now far more stringent. My guest today is Rodrigo Esponda. He's the managing director of the Los Cabos Tourism Board, and before that, for more than a decade and a half, he was the regional director of the Mexican Tourism Board for both USA and Canada. Los Cabos, like so many other destinations, has seen inbound traffic in November drop to less than 50% of 2019 numbers. As it prepares to reopen again in 2021, the focus is on meeting the World Travel and Tourism Council's safe travel guidelines, implementing accessible rapid testing right at the hotel level in order to meet more stringent border crossing rules worldwide, and empowering the network of Los Cabos tourism businesses and operators to tell the story of a safe and purposefully careful Los Cabos to the rest of the world. Good morning, Rodrigo Esponda. How are you, sir? Where are you, and what's it like right now?
Buenos dias, David. Good morning. I am precisely in beautiful Los Cabos, working very hard.
What's it like today on a day-to-day basis? When you walk downtown, what's it like?
Well, everybody, there is some sort of expectation towards the future. Everybody has been going through different stages since, as you were describing, since we closed and then we're prepared to reopen, then we reopen, and it's been some sort of a wagon in moving in different directions. And right now, everybody is holding in terms of what is going to be bringing towards the second part of 2021. Everybody's hoping the best and working to make sure that the visitors have the best experience, because as you know, the only economic activity that we have here is tourism. So we live from our visitors, and we need to have them coming and feeling in the best way possible.
So, Rodrigo, take us through a little bit of a history lesson. So last January, like the rest of the world, you're sitting on the cusp of an emerging virus that looks like it'll be a problem. By February, it's a full-blown problem. By March, we're doing things we've never seen before. Talk us through sort of the spring, the summer reopening, and then the second wave, and what that's meant to Los Cabos as a destination, what it's meant to the operators there.
Well, we have a very particular model in Los Cabos of how we operate. So the stakeholders are grouped into different associations. So it's a very united destination. And in February of last year, we were already having meetings, all of the different associations of stakeholders, planning and preparing and making scenarios of what this would be. So we prepared 3 scenarios. One that was, let's say, a little bit optimistic, one, the medium one, that we thought that would be extreme, and a very one that it was super extreme on how this would be happening. I have to say that I was initially thinking of the positive one, then I moved to the medium one, and then we ended up in the most extreme one. The interesting thing is that because we were already thinking of these 3 scenarios, it was some sort of easier to move from one to the other to the last one, instead of being completely unprepared and not thinking of what you would do, because on each of these scenarios, we were planning some specific reactions internally and externally, and things that we would need to start working on. So I remember perfectly when in March, we decided in a meeting with all the associations and the authorities to completely shut down the destination. And I was impressed that it was not a mandate from the authority. It was a collective decision because everybody knew that we needed to do it in order to be ready and in better shape to reopen in an organized way. So it was painful when we communicated to the community of Los Cabos that we needed to shut down. Probably people would not believe that this could ever happen in a tourism destination. That meaning shut down is no beaches, no businesses open, completely shut down, and everybody was working from home remotely.
So that's April last year?
April 1st of last year, we were completely shut down. So
Got it.
April 2nd, it was like a desert. And if
Wow.
you would see the ocean, there was no single boat, no boat.
Wow.
And that was impressive because there is always a constant flow of boats, fishing boats, small sport fishing boats or sailing boats, but no boats whatsoever. So it was completely shut down. The marine, the hotels were empty, everybody was sent home, and everybody was communicating through different media. So and then we started preparing of how we would need to reopen the destination. It's meaning what phases and what steps we would need to do, each of us in the different businesses. So we, for example, in the Hotel Association, they started checking all around the world what protocols they were implementing in order to make sure that everybody would have the best guidelines implemented. And that was a hard work. And then we start moving to the restaurants, to the businesses, to the beaches. And there are different levels of responsibility on each of them. So let's say the beaches, there are municipality responsibilities and also federal responsibilities. And so we needed to work all together from different levels of authorities towards different associations. So we work in 11 protocols to cover all the tourism services from the airport, transportation, restaurants, businesses, the golf, the villas that are being rented. So the property managers needed to participate. And then everybody started really getting aligned. I remember when we were doing a training around May to the restaurants on the protocols and the guidelines. And I was impressed that there were almost 2,000 people connected from the restaurants.
Wow.
So restaurant workers that were looking to learn on how to implement the measures and the protocols. So the training was key to really have everybody aligned. And as such, we decided that when we were already with the protocols and the training, that we would be opening in June 15. That because we saw that the number of cases went very low, that the protocols were in place. And interestingly, and by my surprise, we saw that there was a demand in the United States to come to Los Cabos as soon as we would really open the door.
So let's touch on that just for a second. 2,000 restaurant operators join a series of seminars to talk about protocols for reopening. 2,000 just in Los Cabos.
Just in Los Cabos.
That's an amazing, stakeholder operator alignment to be able to bring that in, and the Los Cabos board, his role and function in there is to facilitate it, but you've gone further as a destination even. This is what really impresses me. Just a little bit as an aside, talk about the service proposition, because I think when it comes down to how you made that shift prior to June and how you emerged, there's a remarkable value proposition around the Los Cabos situation, and it has to do. I think the best example of it is to talk about how you adjusted to actually literally create in-hotel testing, in-airport testing, and really address the World Travel and Tourism Council's safe guidelines head on. Said, okay, if we're going to do this now, I don't know many of other places that have actually gone to that level, but talk to me about the testing piece you were able to put into place.
Well, the testing was some sort of the same type of work that we were. And one point that made it very easy is that we are and we were already doing a massive testing program to the tourism employees. So all the businesses we're going through a periodical testing program where that is subsidized by the authorities to make it very affordable. There is a cost that the business units need to cover, but it's minimal. And it's really a very small amount.
If I'm not mistaken, your testing can run in around the $60 range, which is
the subsidized testing program by the government is $10.
Really? Because I've been keeping track of this around the world, and it's not uncommon that places that are asking for departing COVID tests or arriving COVID tests, the costs on those things are $200 and $300 easily in many destinations.
Yeah. No, we have been making it accessible. Many hotels and many businesses are truly covering the cost. So if you stay 3 nights, then your testing is completely free. That is what most of the properties are doing, and of the villa rental companies, the timeshares, because one characteristic that Los Cabos has is that 65% of our visitors are repeat visitors. So when you need to create and maintain that loyal base of visitors, Canadians are the most loyal ones. The repeat visit from Canadians is 75%.
Right.
So that means that somebody that comes really loves the destination and then keeps coming. It's a safe place. The quality of the services are at the highest level, and everybody's welcome.
And the quality of the services really are at the highest level. I mean, we're talking about a destination where your ADR is probably 3 times what it is in a lot of the rest of Mexico.
That's true. We are 3 times the ADR than any other destination in Mexico. And interestingly, since we reopened, that has even increased. So the value proposition of the destination is precisely that by making everybody feeling safe, then there is more demand than what we can accommodate because of the capacity cap. And people feel safe. We measure it in the exit survey.
Talk about your capacity cap for a second. It is capped at what, 50% now?
Yes, it's 50%. We started at 30%, then 40%, and then we're at 50%. And there have been strict curfews all around the destination. When we reopened was at 10 p.m. Everything had to be shut down. Right. Inside the restaurants, the resorts, and everywhere. Then it was 11, and currently it's at midnight. But at midnight has to be everything. All tourism services have to be shut down completely. Right. In the destination, and there are inspections, verifications. As you were mentioning, the WTTC protocols, the safe travel stamps. We carefully align it towards there, and then we've been working towards other international certifications. We're working with Intertech Cristal. We're working with Share Care. Trying to really implement the highest level of quality in the protocols at the same level of the value proposition that the destination has always kept.
Absolutely. So I know this from talking to you. You love Mexico and your heart is there. You worked at the Mexican Tourism Board for a decade and a half. You've lived in Canada, the US, all over the world. Los Cabos is a perfect petri dish for developing some really progressive things in tourism, and let's not the least of which, because with such a great ADR, it's easier to experiment there than maybe in more marginal properties that are highly price competitive. Do you think that the best practices you've developed and the models you're working on in Los Cabos can filter down? I know that your heart still exists with the Mexican Tourism Board and you want the best for the country. Are they paying attention to what you're doing? And is there a chance that we'll start to see, I'm sure in the industry, we'll start to see more implementations of this. The cruise industry won't recover unless testing becomes an integral part of its proposition. Is there hope that these lessons you're learning can spread across the country?
I believe so. I'm passionate about Mexico and about tourism, and we've been very open to share all the information with other destinations, not just in Mexico, but in other parts of Latin America. We've been getting in touch with different countries and different organizations that have been asking us about what we do. Visit California, for example. We're going to be participating in their annual event in a few weeks. And it was the same. We were the only destination in Mexico, and they've seen what we are doing, how we have been doing, working with the stakeholders. And it's something that we need to share, because the only way to get back the tourism industry is by working collectively. I think that is what is being hurting, because instead of countries collaborating among each other, everybody's taking unilateral decisions just to help themselves, but not to collectively get to the best way that things would be improving overall. And that would be the faster way to get on track, instead of just trying to close the borders, close the business, close the route, and then just caring about how I'm going to be making less my worst situation. So it's been very interesting to see. I think that collectively we're going to be getting to a point that there is going to be a consensus that things can be reopening just by the full collaboration of everybody.
Well, and I see that collaboration really well in the microcosm of Los Cabos. I'm impressed with how the tourism board was able to align those stakeholders, bring them to the table, sort out role and function across, segment organizations like restaurant associations, working with government organizations like public beaches and ports. I'm really impressed with that. But the other day, you and I were talking, and you brought up an interesting question, which is, and if I can sort of summarize it for you, and please correct me if I'm a little off center on this. Los Cabos is made up of thousands of operators, all who offer different things. From the picture behind you right now, the fellow who's running the ATV experience, the hike the hills and the mountains tours, the scuba and snorkeling situations. Aligning all of those people is the goal. And you said something. You said it becomes even more important in a world where when people make travel inquiries about Los Cabos, it doesn't necessarily run through a Los Cabos website. They're often ending up right on the websites and the listing services of these individual operators, whether they're looking for a treetops experience or an oceanfront experience. You said that the challenge is about getting all of the stakeholders to tell the same story, so people understand that level of safety and hygiene and care that you're putting out there. So talk to me a little about the messaging out from Los Cabos, from that entire digital footprint of thousands of operators. How do you work on that?
Well, we had to create on a local campaign. So it's been interesting because we have always been working on marketing and communication campaigns for the outside, for the outbound markets, United States, Canada, Mexico, and others. But in this occasion, we had to work on a local campaign to really align everybody. So it was called Paint a Smile On. And the way of making sure that even with all the current situation and the uncertainty, you need to smile. You need to have that level of hospitality to welcome everyone. It's been interestingly also that, for example, we have a narrative, a storytelling of how we need to position the protocols and the care that we are putting together. And then we start sharing it internally. And it is interesting, as you were pointing, that when you get into the different websites of the tourism providers, you read on how they are selling their services. And it is precisely a line of how we are selling the destination. And I love it because there are even some stories that I tell that, Los Cabos is the Caves and the story of three brothers. And I say, one is the good brother, the second one is the bad behaved brother, and the third one is the hippie brother, because Cabo San Lucas is where everybody comes and there are some nightlife and the marina. San Jose del Cabo is a traditional Mexican town that it's a sleepy town that at 11 everything is shut down and you cannot even whistle in the town. And then the third one is a natural reserve area that everybody is in a much more relaxed way. And then I was reading the websites of different providers, and then they use the same story. So I love that.
Really interesting. Yes.
Then everybody is aligned, and then I think we should feel proud that people are using the same narrative that we are, because it's the only way to really push in move forward in the same direction.
So as you push into 2021, you have a very well articulated recovery plan. Obviously, the situation we find ourselves in clinically in the world is going to affect how fast that rolls out, how soon we can recover bigger capacity. But you've defined your lane really well. Los Cabos is an exclusive destination with a very high value proposition to go along with its attributes and service. What would you share if you look across the United States and Canada and Europe and the rest of the world in terms of meeting the consumer where and how they shop? And I think you've done a fabulous job of addressing something that in marketing I call the hygiene motivator balance. You motivate people to travel, you motivate people to buy luxury goods, but you must meet all these hygiene factors first. If you're buying a Cadillac, it has to be fuel efficient and low maintenance and whatever. And then you can sell them on all the electric accoutrements. Similarly, in travel, it's emerged now that one of the hygiene factors, pun intended, is you must show that you are COVID safe. And I think we're going to be doing that in destinations for years to come. I don't think it's unusual, in the future for my family, if we want to go to Costa Rica at Christmas, is to look at what the flu profile is going to look like in Costa Rica on a given year at Christmas. This is with us, and it's here to stay. So what suggestions do you have to the rest of the world when it comes to tourism marketing about integrating this messaging, about getting their stakeholders on board? Because I don't think it's going to scare off travelers. It's actually going to make them feel more comfortable. What can you share with us?
Well, I agree with you first that this is going to be something that we will need to be dealing for a few years. It's not going to go away. And we pass that message here. So people were expecting that as soon as 2021 would come, then everything would be back to normal. And that didn't happen. And it would not happen during 2021 or 2022. The testing, I think, is the best thing that we need to do. And the more technology is implemented to make it testing easier, faster, it would be more secure for everybody to communicate. And the mobility, it's directly associated with the contagious of the virus. So that is what is hurting the tourism businesses, because tourism is, you have to move in order to travel. And then if you move and then that's associated with how you are transmitting the virus, then it's completely hurting. So there has to be a way that testing is implemented, and it has to be a very consistent experience what you offer. And I believe that is what is, we're facing 2 or 3 years that are going to be truly uncertain in all ways. There are going to be a changing nature of everything, how people plan their vacation. Instead of thinking of a year over, they would be thinking of 1, 2, or 3 months, because there would be no way that you can really plan to travel with 1 or 2 years in advance. How you would be buying an air ticket and a full package when things can change from one day to the next one. So we need to provide all the certainty in the way that things are done in the best possible experience. We need to be flexible. We need to be prepared for the changes that would be coming throughout the months. And we need to be very articulated with our partners, in the stakeholders, internally and externally, because thanks to the technologies, now we are having conversations with our partners outside the Los Cabos Tourism Board on a weekly basis, when before we were probably communicating once a month. So all those changes are positive, and I think that if we keep working as such, then the tourism is going to come back stronger, faster, and better.
Well, you said a couple of things here that are really interesting. One is that your communications with outside entities is higher now than before. And I was in a meeting the other day, and we were talking about a company that's our partner company in Britain, and the British company literally said, "We are so much better integrated with Tucson in the last year because Zoom went from being a novelty to a way of people doing business. So we found ourselves, our external communications have gone way, way up, and the quality of those communications have gone way, way up. But I want to come back to something else you touched on earlier. Testing is essential. So you're in Los Cabos, you need a 48-hour advance test before you can return to Canada or the US. But the hotels went even one step further. And I've been researching, and I read in some materials that in the event that you have a COVID test that isn't favorable to you traveling, the hotel's also prepared to say, now that you're here and it's not your vacation, we're going to offer you some options for staying that make it easier on you. They're going to give you discounted opportunities. So they're not just dealing with the idea that you need testing, but they're dealing with the idea that the outcome of the testing going whichever way, we're here to help with that as well. Exactly. I think that's remarkable.
Well, it's the only way because we are, and as you were mentioning, the value proposition of the destination has to be the experience, not the volume. So we don't want thousands and thousands of people just to come for the sake of coming, and that's it. We want to make everybody feeling that they are traveling for a particular reason. They are here because they want to practice some activity, to be together, to relax, or to work from home. Many people have been coming just to work remotely. And that, I think, is an interesting concept that would remain. Homes are also, the real estate market is moving very fast because now people are working here in Los Cabos instead of being in other parts that the weather and the total conditions would not be good. So testing, I think, is crucial, and it would be here for a few times, for many years to come. And we need to prepare it to offer it in a seamless way without hurting the experience of our visitors or locals.
Well, I think that's great. And I think the long view that health is part of travel, health is a responsibility of a tourism board, that not to say they have to execute it, but they certainly can't be ignorant of it anymore as we move forward. I think that's brilliant. I'm going to ask a question that I get asked all the time, and it's an important question. It's not to put you on the spot. I want you to go with your gut, but it's a two-parter. In a world where you're creating this alignment, where you're sharing Los Cabos with the rest of the world, where you've gone through all the work locally to work with various entities, from government groups to individual businesses, I want to ask you this. What is stakeholder engagement in tourism? What does it mean, and why does it matter? Two parts. What does it mean? Why does it matter?
Well, it matters because it's the only way that tourism can take place. Either you are all engaged in the stakeholders or it's not sustainable. Not even at the long term, it's not sustainable in the immediate term. So that's why it matters. How you do it, I think you need to be very understandable of the particular points of view and interests of different people and different groups and different associations. And we discuss this internally in the Los Cabos Tourism Board because, as you were mentioning, you are a small scuba diving operator. So your interests are, it's a fraction of the model of how the destination works, because they are catering for some people that come just to dive in a particular remote location, that they want the marine experience. But they are a small part, and you need to understand that that's very important for them. You cannot think that, because they are just having 30 people in a week, they are not important. They are definitely important. As any hotel that might be having in 400 rooms, and if you multiply 400 rooms times a month, then they might be having in a month thousands of people coming to their hotel, their property. So everybody's interest, it's important. And if you understand that internally and externally, because it's the same with an airline. When you are discussing with one of the big US carriers that brings close to 1 million visitors to a destination, then imagine what this would be. So you need to understand that everybody has a piece in how the whole machinery of tourism works. And once you understand that and you care about each of them having priorities and having a clear objective, then you can start offering things that people would really notice and would make a difference in their lives.
So, and what I'm reading in there when you say between the lines is verticals like diving. They may not be the biggest population of divers, but they're incredibly prestigious when it comes to defining the Los Cabos brand. As is outdoor adventure, as is nightlife, and people will find those activities through the channels they use to find diving, through the channels they use to find Latin American music. And you have to empower those channels.
Exactly. You have to empower those channels. You have to understand them. You have to care about them, and you have to consider them. So, for example, what we've been doing in integrating digitally in our website is we need to have a piece for everyone. Right now, most of the businesses in the destination, they have their own password and they log in into the Visit Los Cabos website, and then they can upload pictures, make some changes, some modifications. So they are helping themselves,
yes,
that and helping the destination if we are all integrated into the same digital ecosystem that it's been a key component moving forward for the destination.
Well, and I really appreciate you saying that, because I've been saying for a couple of years now, destinations exist in the world in two succinct forms. There is the magnificent physical Los Cabos, and there's digital Los Cabos. And the truth of the matter is, a far greater proportion of the world's population will experience the digital Los Cabos than will ever experience it in person. But that just underlines the importance that the digital and the physical actually line up, that there's resonance there between the two of them. I mean, we've all seen in the past, the famous beach shot, that when you get to the beach and you realize the angle it was shot at didn't show you the garbage and the rundown marina and stuff like that. And I think in a world where we're looking for authenticity, we're getting so much better at checking against that through third party. It's not uncommon to go look at a beach and then go and try and look at the user generated photos of that beach and see if they actually line up with the agency created photos of that beach. So I really appreciate your work on digital truth. I think as we experience Los Cabos in the world digitally, it is a remarkable experience, and I'm looking forward to you just continuing to grow that. But I got to come back to this thing. The idea that you're working so hard as the Bureau to ensure that all levels of the experience, from the inbound to the in-market to working with operators, is safe and sustainable, and communicating that to the rest of the world, I think that's incredibly important. And I applaud you for your leading work in that area.
Well, it's, the hard work of every single people that live in Los Cabos. Every person in Los Cabos is putting their part, and we are just coordinating in how this is communicated, because it's a very important story that people need to know of how everybody's working here, and it's improving their quality of life through tourism. Those economic, social, cultural benefits that everybody's getting through tourism, we have a big responsibility to keep working and keep being the element of change in the matter of lives of so many people.
Well, listen, thank you so much for being a guest. I will ask you one last question, which is, when we can travel, and that actually might be a fair bit of a ways out, where in the world do you want to go? Where do you miss?
Well, I have family in Toronto, and as you know, right now they completely shut down the flights between Mexico and Canada. So the first place that I would travel would be to Canada to see my family as soon as.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll swap you houses. You stay here. I'll come down and stay at your place, because I'd love to see Los Cabos. But I can't wait to the day that you can come back and visit your family in Canada. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, Rodrigo. Thanks for taking the time.
Gracias, David. It's a pleasure.